Good evening, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving from the Pundits Pundit. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. We have quite a show tonight, so I hope you can stay with us. And I'll let everybody know at the top that the Pundits Pundit is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of the Pundits Pundit can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're always looking to add more subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problems. Go through the chat room, comment. That's one way to get in here. Or the other idea is send your topic ideas to South Florida Tribune at gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, give me a call, 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. Twitter, X, we're at Tribune South. Candy Emling is normally behind the scenes, but she is with us tonight.
Welcome, Candy.
And my book, Lessons from the Microphone. Now you see it, okay? Tuning into the enduring wisdom of visionary leaders is out on the market through Amazon and Kindle. With that said, I will turn it over. Again, here we have our crew. We got Candy Ebling.
Hi, everybody.
And the pundit himself, Jacob Christner.
Yep, different background tonight for at least one day.
Well, that's all right. And George Icorn. We'll never forget you on Thanksgiving because of that background. So that background is in the history books for you no matter what.
Yeah, no kidding.
Hi, guys. Hi, everybody.
And George Icorn. All right. Well, you know what? Tonight's show is titled Giving Thanks for This Show. And we're going to turn over to the pundit himself. Jacob, go ahead.
What's going on, everybody? It's like, this is it is definitely, I'm going to start this before anything. I have done this show about 3 years now. Going to be on the 4th. I've done it with this crew. A year? Was it about a year now?
Mm-hmm.
And it's about a year. It's about a year now. And I'm like, I couldn't have it better. It's like, I enjoyed everybody that I've ever worked with. But I feel like that, including the backup with Candy and everything like that, and with Denzel and everything, this is just a crew that works. And I couldn't be prouder of it. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, when you have chemistry, you have chemistry. So you have those, and we have these things. And I just wanted to bring that part. Now, and it's like I said, I could have done that on the I could have done it on the pundit point tonight, but I wanted to start it. But let's get on to the first one, because this is something I wanted to bring it through. It's either way. See, Angel Reese. One of the things that we have right now is we heard her all off season. And between Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, Paige Buckers, however it's pronounced, we a little while back, and I don't know if you heard this, Candy. I don't know if you heard this from me. I said the minute we know their names, the women's basketball will get bigger. And I just named 3 of them, which I wouldn't have ever said in my life that I could have done that. So we know those. But the thing is, we saw Angel Reese all off season. We saw her in ads. We saw everything. We saw her in the final doing this. We doing these type of things with the ring, all that kind of stuff. But what do we have right now? We have an issue where she played the very first game, and she's been gone since. At this point in time, they're not explaining. Coach isn't explaining. No one's explaining anything. There's rumors that it's grades. There's rumors that it's the bad behavior. There's rumors that moms of the stars are going at each other. We don't know. Biggest thing that I have to say, though, is, and this is the debate for the night. What is it? Knowing that she's making all this NIL money, is it grades or is it something else? And that's what I have to bring. This is one thing I bring up through all this is like, why would it be grades when she's making money? Why would she care? But at the same time, is it the coaching or is the organization making this happen, or is there some kind of revenge happening? I just put this as a debate. And I wanted to just first off, I'm going to start with Scott. What you think about all this?
Gosh, when somebody disappears like this, I do believe that the only way you can lose someone like this would be with the grades, wouldn't it?
Quite possibly.
How many times have you seen great players succumb to grades and then they're not in school? Sometimes you bring in these student athletes that really want to be athletes, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now you got NIL money thrown out there. but they can't cut it with the grades. So now they're not playing it. That's the only thing I could justify it with.
The only thing I think about is how much does this change something? Number one, does Angel Reese leave? Because gotta remember, Kim Mulkey doesn't mess around with her. She does not mess around with her program at all. She does not. This has already been proven. But the point I'm saying is, how much does this change things? Because if Angel Reese listens to all this, gets her grades up, this can change everything with the way coaches handle things with, like 1-year players, 2-year players. This can change things where before the players had all the power. This can give the coaches the powers back. But what happens? Will Angel Reese decide to just leave, knowing that she's making this money? Will she try to do something else? And I was going to think, what do you think, Candy?
I was just trying to read up on some of it, and one of the things that Angel Reese did post is she said, "Please don't believe everything you read." So that leads me to believe it's more to the story, and I don't think it's grades. I think it might be a conflict between her and Kim Mulkey.
Well, yeah, there's things between her and Mulkey, but it's like, who wins the battle? And again, there are coaches watching this. There are coaches watching this because the last few years, you got to remember, we've lost Krzyzewski, we've lost Boeheim, we've lost quite a few legends because they don't want to be dealing. I mean, Tom Izzo has been shown on camera can't control these guys anymore. There's a lot of coaches between men and women that are going to be watching this to see who wins this power struggle. If Kim Mulkey wins this power struggle and Angel comes back and behaves herself, they've got some power back. And I was going to say, and truthfully, where do you think this goes, George?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, the fact of the matter is that she's missing, and obviously they're missing her from the lineup. And we can speculate all we want. Obviously, grades is one story. The money, the draw of the money from, NIL, and also the fact that let's not forget, that incident that happened last year where she pointed to her finger right in the face of the Caitlin Clark, wasn't it, in the championship game?
Yep.
And that did not set well with a lot of people. I don't want to draw inferences into that. Crazy people will say something about, well, it was a racial thing and all that. Now, I'm not reading into it that. I just don't feel it was good sportsmanlike conduct by her last year in that championship game when she had a point to the finger. But the fact of the matter is you're right. The coach has got the power at Mulkey, and she is good. She's a great coach, not good. And she made one quote here I saw. She says, "I'm going to protect my players always. They are more important." That's a family in that locker room, and that is a family. And, she emphasized that when she talked to a member of the media the other day. So, yeah, there's something that, you could draw from this, but I just can't say for certain what it is. But I think you're right, though, Jacob. The coach having a little bit more power and a little bit more control is obviously would be good for the program and good for, women's basketball as an entirety.
Well, Jacob, I should also add that I know you're talking about the surface part of the story where there's a lot of gray area involved here, but this is something that I really do believe we should follow on later until more information comes out on it. This is just a thought.
Oh, no, absolutely. It's like this was kind of my debate part of all this, And the big thing I look at, the biggest thing that I look at is like, there's just differences with how everything goes. Like the Iowa program, they lost in the final last year, but everybody's got their grades. Everybody works. Right. And it's not like Caitlin Clark she's got a NIL State Farm deal. It's not like that she hasn't either, but I'm like, her game's just as big as ever. It looks like she's on her grades. She does all that. To me, it's like, I don't want to call it a culture difference. I don't want to do that. I don't want to call it where we are, like between Louisiana and Iowa. I don't want to call it something like that because there are players in Louisiana that are following their rules. Sure. There are with Kim Mulkey. So it's not any of that part. It's just like that's the only thing I'm asking is what's caused this. what started it in the first place, and will we know in 10 years? Because Kim Mulkey, I think she's doing the right thing and not trying. She's trying to protect the kids.
Absolutely.
She's trying to protect the kids, and the media doesn't like it, but media just wants the story.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's been part of coaching for so long, like you said, and she really knows how to handle a locker room. I mean, obviously this is something that's extraordinary. I mean, the fact of the matter is talking one or two top best players in the nation, this is happening too. But like Scott said, I mean, we don't know all the facts right now. And certainly we definitely want to keep an eye on this one.
And I do have one more question before we go on. I just wanted to ask this part of the debate. You think, let's just pretend that Pat Summitt lived and she's still coaching or she's getting it. Do you think she'd still be have the same power as she did? Just this way of the world.
Oh, I don't think there's any question with Pat Summitt. I mean, she to me she's in a class by herself, no doubt about it. I mean, without Pat Summitt, you don't have women's basketball.
Well, that's true.
I don't really worry about his consecutive undefeated. That doesn't mean nothing to me. Gina Auriemma, to me, Connecticut's a great basketball region. Pat Summitt put in women's basketball. I don't think she's on such a pedestal high that she would make Kareem Abdul-Jabbar look like an ant.
Yeah, that's true. And Candy, what do you think? You think she'd still have the same power today, or you think she'd have trouble?
No, she would definitely have power because she's earned that respect. And I think because she put women's basketball on the map and made it what it is today, that you have to have the respect for her and that she would have that. I think everybody would want to play for her. I mean, why wouldn't you want to play for an icon like that?
8-time national title. You're right. And George, you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you compare her to a guy like John Wooden or Mike Krzyzewski. I mean, you got, these coaching legends of all time. But yeah, I think Pat would. I definitely would want to play for her and be on her team because that's just a phenomenal person and a phenomenal coach too.
Oh, she was a great woman, and it's like the only thing I think with her is I really believe. I think the one difference between her and Kim Mulkey in this situation is I believe it would be stomped like a cigarette butt. The whole thing. I think that there's fighting, there's everything. It's gone. It's like I don't think it's hidden. I think it's gone. I think there's going to be some players gone. I think she's just not going to put up with it. And it's like because the thing is she always just had it's kind of like the Green Bay Packers, the ticket things like from 1971. Everybody wanted to play for her, so it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter, by the way. It's like, so, okay, if she lets him go and said there's going to be others who want to play for her. Not every coach has that. And we have those. And it's like, and we'll talk about this. And that's another thing, because I love about this is this will be another. Just like what we're going to talk about Sunday night, I'm going to bring up on there. It's like we brought up Aaron Batson last week. We'll bring that up also. There's 101 things. But we have another title here. We have another topic, and this one's big. I want you to hear this. Number 2. Did you guys hear about this weekend?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, my Lord. So people always will say about these stadiums. They'll always say this. They say, why this stadium was good. This was perfectly fine. This was perfectly good. And all that. Why do they keep building these? Then you get FedEx Field, which was FedEx. The FedEx was the same as RFK Stadium, wasn't it? Or was it built?
Well, no, it was built. I've been in both RFK Stadium and FedEx Field.
So it was built then. But see, that's the reason I asked, because of the age already. I was wondering if it was the same and it was a different there. That's what I was asking. Yeah. So, but this is literally the story for anybody that did not hear. They lost power. They lost water power, basically water heater. They lost it all, so the players could not shower after the ball game in a NFL stadium. They couldn't shower. They couldn't do anything. Couldn't play the water. And it reminds me, and I think you and George here, Scott, we're going to know the story. Six Stadium, Seattle.
Right.
Six Stadium. Do you know that story, George?
No.
Six Stadium. One thing I can tell you about Six Stadium is the Seattle Pilots played there in 1969, and they became the Milwaukee Brewers in 1970.
Well, here's the story of Six Stadium. And I want everybody to listen to this because it is funny. The whole biggest thing was the fact that like in Seattle, like in the 30s, there was the serial arsonist who was burning everything down. So they had a legitimate stadium for anybody that wanted to go through, and he just burned everything down. It's kind of an anarcho whatever, kind. So he burned the thing. So it couldn't. They were going to try to get him earlier, and they couldn't. So they build these stadiums up over the years. 1969 comes, and they hurry a team in for Seattle, the Pilots. And they get Sick Stadium from a guy named Sick, Emil Sick, who was I think funny thing about his name is I think he was a pharmacy guy. So what do you know? So but Emil Sick, and I believe that's what his name was. And they came from Sick Stadium. And the issue came that it was built too early. It was built, and they were having to hurry up. And it was tough. They didn't have the pipe. They had the piping for 10,000 people. They brought 25,000 in most games during that first year. So the plumbing went to crap. Everything came up. You couldn't shower. You couldn't flush toilets. Couldn't do anything. So midway through the 6th inning, you'd be smelling sewage.
Yeah.
And then like game 1 of Sick Stadium, while the game was going on, they're still building bleachers. So craziness. So now all of this is reminding me completely of RFK Stadium right now. Not RFK, the FedEx. And it's like, how do we have this in 2023? Go ahead. I want to ask this, George. How do we have this in 2023?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, could it dare be the revenge of former owner Dan Snyder?
You think he had would he have any power left? That's what I'm saying. I know it's a joke, but would he have any power left to do something like that?
Oh, probably not. I say that with tongue in cheek, but yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, come on. I mean, in today's day and age, and especially with any stadium, but especially with the NFL, and especially with you're hosting a team from out of state. It's just worst timing. There couldn't be a worse time for that kind of stuff to happen than during a pro football game in the NFL. I mean, it boggles my mind that something like that could happen. Of course, things are made to be broken, and we've had power blackouts out east. We had the big blackout in the Midwest. Hey, we've gone through a lot of different things, obviously, regarding energy and regarding things like plumbing and that. But no, I was flabbergasted. That is, and not only that, but it's embarrassing, obviously, for the Washington franchise too.
Well, yeah, that's the big thing. A lot of like old school fans that like for instance, there are old school fans of the Bears that want to keep Soldier Field, even though it's going to go into the burbs. They're going to have a new stadium, but they're not realizing that every single time you're going to get a story like this. And Soldier Field, it's owned by the Chicago Park District. So problem goes with something like that is their sod is within the top 4 worst every single year. So their field is horrible. So what do you do in a situation like this? It's like we used to remember 30 years old was a young stadium, and now that we have to rebuild again. So, but could they possibly? And I'm going to ask this to you, Scott. Could they possibly lose? Could they possibly lose the Commanders? And stuff like that if they don't build a new stadium.
Oh, they're going to build a new stadium. They were waiting for Dan Snyder to get out of there. Come on, Jacob. What Kool-Aid are you drinking, pal? I mean, seriously. Dan Snyder, to me, is a guy they wanted out of there. If you go back to Charlotte, they weren't building George Shannon Cotton Pickens Stadium until they got him out of there. And what Dan Snyder did was simply one thing, Jacob, okay? Neglect. He didn't want to do any maintenance if he had to. You're talking about a guy that charged people to go ahead and see, at that time, the Redskins, to see the charge admission for training camp. Did you ever know that?
Yeah, I do.
Snyder did that. So that was neglect. Josh Harris will get it straight. Magic is around. Anything Magic gets his hands on, he turns to gold anyways. But simply neglect. Dan Snyder said, I want a new stadium. NFL wasn't giving it to him, or not NFL, but the district wouldn't. Now you have new ownership. They'll probably try to clean it up a little bit for about a year or two until they get their hands on their stadium situation. Plus, they have another problem. The product on the field stinks. Okay?
So better last year. Better last year, but still stinks.
Had been that good for a long time. So they're in the Washington Commanders right now, Jacob, are in a state of transition. Things will get better for them. I really do. You have Josh Harris, whose own successful franchise. We all know what Magic does. So that'll get straight, but it was just simply neglect. He wasn't paying. Who knows who was responsible for the maintenance or whatever, but Dan Snyder didn't care. That's all there is to it.
Oh, I know.
But I've been in both stadiums, RFK, and that was a nice stadium. George, remember I got a pass the first couple of years. I used to go to Washington on 2 or 3 occasions to see games. I enjoyed RFK a lot. I really did enjoy that place. And then I also went to the new one, which is out in Landover, Maryland. So neglect is all it is to it.
Were you one of the Hogettes, Scott, when you went to
No,
Washington?
not really. I was in the press box and made my way down to the field, and they were nice people over there. The problem was the Lions were playing in the run and shoot, and we were losing by high margins, and we couldn't control the football. I don't know what I was, but I can tell you what, it was great to see a game with the Redskins over in that venue, over at RFK, when obviously it has a great amount of tradition. So.
Oh, and the thing I look at, and you're correct on that. You are right that they're not going to neglect it. But all I remember is when Soldier Field got
neglected.
No, they're not going to neglect. They're going to get
not the new ownership. They won't.
Yeah. But I remember when the Bears renovated Soldier Field, so they used University of Illinois' field for a year. They used Memorial Stadium for a year, and it's like you just wonder. Okay, they're not going to leave, but you got to wonder if they're going to use a stadium like Maryland Stadium for a year to do that. Would the NFL allow that now, just because it's a different day?
Oh, they don't care. If they knew they could get a stadium there, well, one of two scenarios is going to happen. Remember, Maryland's not that far away, okay? Remember, they allowed the Vikings to use the University of Minnesota, and the Vikings made some necessary upgrades over there. They don't care, or they either rip that thing down, go there, or they'll play in until they get a new venue. I believe the new stadium they want is in downtown D.C. anyways, or somewhere in that district. So they could play there until it gets fixed. I don't think the NFL's worried about where they would be temporarily. I really don't.
Yeah, and okay, Candy, I'm going to ask you this question. You've been a Green Bay fan all your life. You know what I'm saying? You've been Green Bay, everything with Lambeau. Knowing the owner, I mean, is it what keeps Lambeau up? It's like, is it the ownership of the people, or what keeps Lambeau? Because Lambeau's an older stadium, but it looks up to tape every single year.
I think because they know that they don't want a new stadium. It's so iconic that they keep having to do repairs to it constantly. And I think that's part of it. When you go back to, and I'm going to go back to this FedEx field. So obviously it was the main water heater. They couldn't fix it. They couldn't shut off the water during the game because obviously there's all kinds of fans in the stands. But now let's go back a year. And do you guys remember back in January of 2022, a crowd of visiting Eagles fans fell from the stands in front of the visitors' locker room after a stadium railing collapsed, nearly crushing Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts in the process. And then dial it back a year before that. During the 2021 season, a FedEx field pipe burst, spilling rainwater, first mistaken as sewage onto fans in the stands. So obviously this is a stadium that needs TLC. And the problem is we are building these billion-dollar stadiums now, and we don't realize that you got to upkeep them. You got to nurture them. You got to fix them. You got to be there. You got to be inspecting them. We just think we can use them 1 day or 2 days a week and that they can just sit there. But they actually need TLC. They need people going in and inspecting. You know, we saw down here, we saw Surfside, the condominium collapse. And that's because the building code wasn't up to par. Well, maybe we have to have good building codes for these big multi-purpose stadiums that are, you know, fans go in there. And I mean, look at how many things have collapsed. Remember the roof collapse of what was the stadium? Was it Minnesota or...
The
One of
Metrodome.
the stadiums. Here's what the thing, that TGL, that golf league with the Rory and Tiger, they had their whole stadium that was going to be, it was going to be kind of a is going to be kind of a digital golf deal. It was called TGL. They're going to be doing that. It was going to be starting in January. It's going to start in 25 because a roof collapsed and a lot of equipment went down and they have to start over. So it's like it happens to everybody, even the new.
Well, Scott will remember we lived through this in Detroit. Remember, Scott, when the Pistons had to leave the Silverdome even during the NBA playoffs and go down to play a game with down at Joe Louis Arena.
Yeah, but George, the Pontiac Silverdome had roof problems from the very beginning. I remember the first game I went there with the LA Rams, there was a little hole in the roof, and that roof became a problem throughout the time the dome was there. So, obviously it was a magnified situation that convinced William Davidson, I need to build my own place. I can't be stuck at Cobo Arena or Joe Louis Arena. I can't.
Right.
And he did.
Right.
But, the Silverdome, if you want a lot of people, that place was going to give it to you. But the roof was awful. We know that.
Yeah.
I always loved it. I always loved the idea that I'm one of the rare people under 50, rare men under 50 years old that remembers all three places for the Pistons.
Oh,
I can remember, the Silverdome, the Pontiac, and then Little Caesars. I can remember. It's like I said. It's like I'm under 50, can remember it. It's like that just gives me a little. It gives me a little fun,
Okay.
They've moved around quite a bit, the Pistons, but they're happy where they're at now. But the Silverdome, that's kind of one of those things that it wasn't really run by the Pistons or the Lions. They had this Pontiac Metropolitan Stadium Authority or something like that. It was called that. So in other words, there was this other group that oversaw the maintenance and the repairs and things like that. So the Lions and the Pistons were removed from that aspect of it, but they were not happy, obviously, when they saw things like Scott said, a hole in the roof or rain pouring in or snow melting and coming in. Yeah. These stadiums do require a lot of maintenance, obviously.
Well, and before we go into the final one and then the pundit points, I wanted to ask this to all of us, the three, you and me. I wanted to say, and I think this is the case here. This is a businessman. We know Dan Snyder neglected, but this is a businessman, supposed to be a businessman. Do you think, and I believe he possibly did, just because of out of spite, guilt, not guilt, but just spite, ego, whatever. You think he did it on purpose, or he literally just had a bunch of money, doesn't know anything? Because with a thing like a FedEx field, you're supposed to be keeping up, just like buildings. Maybe it's the idea that you're building, that you own a building. You need to keep it up to code. You need to be able to do all this. And it's not, I own a stadium. And it's like, you need to keep up the code. You need to keep up the water heaters, all that stuff. Do you think he doesn't want to spend money, or do you think he just did not know anything?
Well, let me just say this. Dan Snyder's a complicated individual. You saw the problems that he had in terms of harassment and all the problems that he had within his front office. So, and again, I'll go back to my point earlier. Anytime you're going to go ahead and charge fans to see you in training camp, what do you really have there? So, you can look at it so many different ways. I think the NFL is glad that Josh Harris made that bid to get him out of there. He couldn't get him out of there quick enough. But, I think there's no question it was neglect, Jacob. I mean, how can you not pay into the venue that not only do you pretty much I think they own it, right? But to me, they own it and give your team a first-class place to play. But I'll go back to what Candy said. Did they do the necessary inspections that they had to do? And the question is evidently not, if you're dealing with those pipe problems leading to what you have now, and that's a hot water. Again, we live it here in South Florida. She makes a great point about Surfside, those condominiums. And now everybody's bolstering their cold. You can't, stadiums are supposed to, you think this last stadium that these organizations are buying should go 60 or 70 years. Not even going 25 or 30 before you rip them down.
Oh, yeah. And it's like we have Lambeau, how old? What's Lambeau, 60 years now, Candy?
Something like that. Yeah, I was just trying to look that up. It was, when was it built? It was built, opened 66 years ago in 1957 as City Stadium.
And this is the funny thing. After they call it Lambeau, the whole thing about it is the funny part is that Lombardi could not stand Curly Lambeau, So that was a little bit of a grind to him. But
Yep.
I'm going to ask you this, and I'm going to ask you this, George, and then Candy. I mean, you brought up a good point there, Scott, but I'm going to ask this to you folks. You think that it's an ego neglect deal? Like it was neglect, obviously. But do you think it was an ego deal, or is he just somebody with money that just not know?
I can't buy that he doesn't know about it. I mean,
or he doesn't know how to handle things like that is what I meant.
Oh, come on, no. But he's got other people in the organization. Every team has a director or vice president of ballpark operations, stadium operations. Mm-hmm. They've got enough experience, obviously, unless they hired the wrong man or woman to do that job. But no, I mean, yeah, obviously the direct ownership would be rare to see somebody like that get away with neglect. But again, who knows? That guy, like Scott said, complicated man. You don't know what he would do, and if he did know something, there's a possibility that he didn't say that. I mean, that he didn't direct the person to repair it. I mean, there's always that possibility, but all these teams, like I said, they've got people looking out after that kind of stuff constantly. Right. All the organizations have that position in their front office or multiple positions, not only to take care of the turf or the field, the gridiron, but they also have to take care of the the needs of the stadium and the infrastructure, water and heat and all that stuff. So I don't know if he would do it deliberately. I mean, I joked about it when I first brought it up with you, but there's a chance he could have. I mean, he's very unhappy the way things worked out for him. So who knows?
And Candy, what do you think?
I think sometimes these multi-millionaires / billionaires look the other way because they don't always want to nickel and dime them. Kind of, I mean, there's a reason why they got as much money as they do. And sometimes it's because they take the shortcuts. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. So let's face it. The product on the field is where he needed to put most of his money. Not that he always did, but that's where you got, I mean, that if you don't have a product on the field, no one's going to come to your stadium, and who cares what array, your stadium is in. And maybe he, in the back of his mind, was like, I'm not going to own this team that much longer. Should I really keep putting my money into the stadium that I'm not, who's going to care? Like when he sold the team, did the guy go in and say, you buy a house, I'm going to go and inspect the house? Does he go in and they inspect the stadium? Did they inspect this and that? They don't do that. So he might have thought, why should I put money into it when he knew he wasn't going to hold it for very long, and that they don't inspect those things.
Well, let me just point this out before we do go on to our next topic, Jacob, okay, to make sure that we get everything in. But here's the thing. Here's a guy that did not want to go ahead and let the Redskins team name go. And I actually sided with him for that, because if it didn't make a big deal up until then, why do you get rid of it? But all this so-called pressure coming, that's another story. But let's not kid yourself. He really didn't want to sell it, but he kept getting himself into, pardon the expression, more and more hot water here, is what he did with all the things that were going on. You think Albert Hainsworth was a wise investment? No, and a lot of the other over-the-hill guys that he paid a boatload of money, you brought in name recognition, and you didn't get it on the field. So when you put things in perspective with this guy, Dan Snyder, he would have stayed on as long as he could. He really would, until his hand was forced because of the way he ran his organization. So,
and one of the thing about it, all I can think about is I talk about the Bears being cheap like crazy. The McCaskets, I call about the McCaskets with them, the dusty old ashtrays. I call them that. But here's what's funny: during COVID, when they did the COVID testing and they did all of this stuff with the Hallis Hall and everything, number one in the NFL, spent all the money. They spent all, and to this day, they kept all of it. They didn't take it down or anything. They still have the touchless to lights. They still have everything there. That's the number one. It is the number one. They like the Hallis Hall is number one thing in the NFL, the number one building, as far as for all that kind of stuff. And it's like they spent their money there, so that's kind of weird. So you got to think that even they know better. You know what I'm saying? Even the old ones know better.
Yeah.
But we get this. Now let's go to the third final because this one's an interesting one here. We get to this here. Have you all read this?
I glanced over it, but
Yeah.
I didn't get in a whole lot.
Did you read it, Candy?
I did glance. Yep.
Basically, what we have is a New York Knicks suing the Toronto Raptors over a possible mole in the organization, and it's like, what's going on here? And I'm going to say, tell me what you read up first. Everything that you read, Candy.
Back in August, the Knicks sued the Raptors and a number of their coaches over an alleged theft of proprietary information. It had to do with they stole like a play frequency report, a prep book for the 2022-23 season, video scouting files and materials, and more. That's what I read.
Now I got to ask this question. Toronto's won a title and been in playoffs. I mean, in the playoffs in the last years. What you would think if they're going to steal from somebody, okay, it'd be Golden State. It'd be even the Lakers who've had them recently. Why the Knicks? What about? I mean, the Knicks are a legendary organization, but they haven't won anything since '73. That's where I'm wanting to go into the thing. I want to ask this about it, Scott. Why them?
I don't know why them.
But why them? But what? It's
well,
like,
I mean, what I'm saying is, you're asking me why them. Yeah, I agree. If you're going to steal from somebody, do a whole lot better than the New York Knicks for crying out loud.
yeah.
I mean, really. I mean, this organization hasn't been relevant since James Dolan took over.
And you know something, there's a lot of stories on Dolan, but really, so it's like, here's the thing. So what happened in the middle? Did someone from the Knicks, and I'm going to ask this, Candy, did someone from the Knicks hire someone from the Raptors? Or the other way?
According to the Knicks, someone who is now the Raptors head of video and assistant used his position with the Knicks, which he held from 2020 to 23, to steal this information. So he's now the head video. He's the Raptors head of video, but he used to be with the Knicks. So
proprietary information. So you have to wonder, maybe it's not the plays, maybe it's not the product on the court, because the Raptors blow the Knicks away with the product on the court and the talent that they get and all of that. Now I'm going to say this, George. You got to wonder, it makes us wonder, you think that their whole overall organization, like maybe their technology, any of that kind of stuff, is just that much better. Just little things to think about. It's more than the winning, or it's more than, because what we see on the surface, the Raptors blow them off. They blow them out of the water. But it's like, maybe are they trying to get bigger budgets? What are they trying to do here?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, they if indeed the Raptors are, a prestigious type of organization when it comes to scouting and analytics and video and all that sort of thing. I mean, there's always a possibility, you know, they went to a team that they really had their stuff together, but you know, it is kind of strange, you know, that it was the Knicks. I mean, obviously we know that they've struggled a lot, obviously for many, many years, even when Isaiah was there as the president of the operations and that, but there's no reason why teams should have to do this. I mean, you know, we're going through this stuff right now, but on a totally different level with Jim Harbaugh and University of Michigan being under investigation. And I tell you what, you're taking so much of a chance, even if you do find a mole like that, because if something like this could break open, and it looks terrible as far as your team goes if something like this would happen to you. You know, and these intelligence secrets on the players, I mean, you know, I don't know what they're all about, these reports and stuff, but you know, everybody's got analytics going now. Of course, every sport, we've seen so much of it in baseball, but basketball too. I mean, there's certainly, but I agree. I mean, it is strange to have this come from the Knicks, seeing they haven't won anything in umpteen years.
We're looking at, this will be 50th year this year.
Oh my gosh.
50th year for the Knicks. And it's like, we laughed with the Cubs with 108. But here's the funny thing with it. They won in 2016 and been to 3 playoffs since. You know what I'm saying, for the Cubs. And it's like, but the Knicks still are. It's like the Knicks and the Guardians are like the two left that don't.
Yeah.
In Cleveland, they're the two left. But really but the thing is, it makes you wonder if the streaks will ever get broken. If you've got the greatest of analytics for a team like Toronto who has won, but yet you still can't win it yourself, you have to wonder if a guy like Dolan will ever dole out. And we know how much you love James Dolan, Scott.
Why is it that obvious?
Oh, yeah, he needs to be the new owner in Detroit.
No, I won't do that. But you know what, though? I will use a Rocky reference now that you mentioned. Well, Drago, whatever he hits, he destroys. Well, whatever Dolan owns, he destroys.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's there was a whole 20-minute thing. There was a whole 20-minute deal on Bleacher Report, like a little mini documentary on how, like, very first year Dolan owned it, they went to the finals. That's with a number 8 seed. And ever since he got so addicted to the idea of it, just made dumb move after dumb move after dumb move, and just pieced everything apart. Just got rid of, spent so much money on stupid people, got rid of a lot of draft picks, all that stuff, just because he thought he could do it. Basically, it's he made it number 8, which is a lucky break by itself. But really, it's telling us now, it was hard enough in our lifetime when we watched the Celtics and the Pistons and all of these type of things, when it's Red Auerbach and it's all the people with Detroit. It was hard enough to win anyway. But
Jack
can you imagine?
Yep.
And it's like, McCloskey, you're right. It was hard enough to win anyway. Can you imagine owning a sports team now?
No, I couldn't. And Scott, you remember this. I mean, and a lot of owners do this, which is nice. But boy, Mr. Davidson of the Pistons, he'd be right there, right behind one of the baskets, right in the front row, watching the Pistons and competing at such a high level. I mean, all the teams, obviously, you mentioned the great ones. I mean, Chicago, not Cleveland. I'm sorry.
William Davidson used to walk by my spot right on the floor all the time. We used
to
wave at each other all the time. He's a nice guy, Mr. Davidson. And when he didn't like the Silverdome, he built the stadium palace by himself. He didn't squawk about public financing. He just built it. Heck with it. This is my team. I have a own private plane. Whatever you need, I'll give it to you. But he used to walk by me all the time on the floor. We used to shake and wave hands and talk to each other.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good owner, obviously, great owner.
Well, here's what I think. It's like, we hear about him. What was his name, by the way?
William Davidson.
We hear about William Davidson. We hear about Joe Robbie. Joe Robbie did the same thing, trying to get the deals. He just built his own stadium with his own money.
Yeah, I know about that story. I was one of the ones that initially broke it back in South Florida and had a chance to talk to Joe Robbie about it. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good. You're good.
Robbie, and you're talking about Davidson, both for whom I worked with. So, that's an interesting story that you brought.
You ever get the feeling that the one owner that pulls this off and does it with his own money is going to be he will not pay for a thing the rest of his life, especially if the team wins it all. He will be the most popular. It's like the closest almost was that San Diego owner that just passed away. And I don't think with that stadium, I don't think he paid his own money, but he was in with the crowd. But just any owner in this day and age that will pull out cash and do it on their own would be a giant hero. And it would also make a huge enemy to the other owners, because the other people would make them expect it. Expect them to do it too,
Yep.
No question. And really, Candy, I wanted to say before we go to the pundit points, you think we'll ever get that? Do you think we'll ever get an owner again that does that?
No.
They'll pay their own cash and never does that.
No. Well, I say that, but then again, I think at some point the fans are going to be fed up and they're going to say, we don't want our money to go to pay for your business. You need to, and I think I hate to say this, but I think the country is getting more where the rich get richer and the rest of us aren't. There isn't going to be all the separation of classes, I don't think. not too far in the distance. You're going to have your really rich and you're going to have the rest of us instead of having a middle class and a lower class. And I think when it gets a little bit more like that, us lower class or middle class, we're not going to pay for it. And you're starting to see that where, like I know in Milwaukee, the smaller towns, they're saying, we're going to do it this last time, but they put up a big fight to pay for these stadiums. They want the owners who own this team, they want the owners that are making the profits to put the money in and build the stadiums, as opposed to us fans. Yes, it's a sport. We get to observe it. We get to, go and enjoy, but we don't get any of the profits from it.
Right.
Why should we be investing in their place where they make the money? We don't do it we don't do it for McDonald's. We don't do it for any of these other types of companies. Why should we do it for a sports team?
Right. And that's understood. And that is an awesome point. And this is probably another, but we probably had 3 part 2s with these topics tonight. I love this. And we can say that. And just a thing, I'm just doing this before we go to the deal here. I'm just going to bring this up. I have my pundit points. Let's go to the pundit point real fast. I'm going to go bring this as another part 2. The thing about is we brought this up last week. Erin Batson was she was the all-time leading scorer for the field hockey for North Carolina. 4 national titles. Then they make her the coach. She just got number 5.
Wow.
She just got number 5. She's 23 years old. And this is the thing I wanted to bring with this pundit point with everything here. It shows a serious level of this is more than competitiveness. There are a lot of people that want to win. Men and women that want to win in this world. They want to. But there's a serious discipline they do not have. It's like it is few that this is one of those that she could probably be a CEO of her own company. She could be like the Blakely from the Spanx. She could be building her own thing, and it'd be worth billions because she has that discipline. And this is where I brought this part up because of our first one with Angel Reese. Is like she's doing with the NIL, but again, paying attention to your grades and then paying attention to everything. Like, say, a Paige Buckers does, like a Caitlin Clark does. That's a discipline. That's a discipline for life. And you have these. Anybody has the ability to be able to do it, but it's a special type of talent to be able to keep your discipline going. Because we all fumble. We're humans. We all fumble in the thing, and she probably fumbles in a certain way. But we all fumble, but it is the hardest thing to do to keep the discipline for this. And this is one of the things that we could show in business classes if we were to be professors, is the idea of where you can make your money and where you can be able to do is the constant discipline. And I'm proud of her, and I wish her well. And I hope one day when she's done with coaching that she starts her own company and makes billions. And that is where I was going to go. And it's like, let's go to Candy next. And we'll go up from there.
The future of live sports TV is reaching a tipping point. We are nearing the end of 2023. The reckoning point has been on the horizon for a while. 2024 is setting up to be the year the decades-old models of delivering sports broadcasts to people's home undergoes a stark change. Sinclair Broadcast Group announced in a Texas court in mid-November its intent to shut down its bankrupt subsidiary, Diamond Sports Group, which operates 17 regional Bally Sports networks across the U.S. at the end of 2024. Diamond's business is going to go away. Diamond is the largest operator of regional sports networks in America. It holds local broadcast rights for 39 teams in the NBA, MLB, and NHL. That's 42% of all live local sports TV inventory, not counting the national rights. Sporting broadcasts are going to change over the course of the next couple years. Am I happy about it? No. But do I want the Comcasts of the world to, or the Amazon Prime and streaming, and now you got to, subscribe to this, you got to subscribe to that, subscribe to that. What's going to happen to the local? Let's face it, we're all aging. When you get older, do you want to be streaming this on this and streaming that and streaming that? Where is local sports going to go? Hold on, because it's going to be a bumpy ride, I think.
George, you go, because Scott's going to have one that's going to go over to the next. So let's go to George.
Well, mine is just, I was a little bit perturbed and a little bit shocked as I sat in the press box for the Lions and the Bears, and I'll tell you why. So upon the third interception thrown by Jared Goff, the fans started booing. And I would say it was more than a few started booing. Now, they must have a short memory. All right. Lions were 7-2, right? 8-2 now. But during that game, they were still 7-2. Come on. Really? I mean, this is just ridiculous. I mean, to boo him and the job that he's done. But that wasn't the end of it. Because then at halftime, with special ceremony, Mr. Commissioner was there, Roger Goodell. And Roger was on hand, and they were actually honoring a military veteran. I don't know, the fans must not known why they was there. I mean, maybe not, but their boos cascaded and all that. It's typical, though. I mean, the Red Wings fans all over boo different commissioners and that. But, I mean, talk about what have I done for you lately. I mean, the Lions were rewarded with one of the biggest plums, well, actually two, in the Ford regime, which was the Super Bowl in Ford Field several years back, and now the NFL draft coming in April of 2024. And I just say that, fans, it can be so fickle sometimes. I'm over it, but it just seemed to be a little bit out of place for me. You're booing a team that's 7-2 on the way to 8-2, and then you're booing a commissioner who helped your owner and your committee, award the draft to them. So that's my pundit point.
And Scott, because you have a big one going into the next.
Oh, I always like to keep them loaded here. Well, Denver Broncos safety Kareem Jackson, who's 35 years of age, now gets a 4-game suspension for his Week 11 hit on Minnesota Vikings quarterback Joshua Dobbs. His suspension was upheld by hearing officer Derek Brooks on Tuesday. You're talking about a guy who's a repeated violation of the playing rules intent to protect the health and safety of the players. Earlier this season, he had a separate 4-game ban, but it was reduced to 2 games. He forfeited $279,000 then. Mind you, he's been fined 4 times for $89,670. These 4 games are going to lose $559,889. My only question is, when will he ever learn? Not so fast, my friend. He's not going to. So there you go. That's my, to me, I hope this is all tax deductible or he's sending it to a nice charity because it's not going to his bank account. Anyway.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. Well, anyways, just to let everybody know that Pundits Pundit will continue on next Wednesday night, and along with the Sports Exchange. So we have 2 back-to-back Pundits Pundit Sports Exchange this Wednesday and next Wednesday. We'll be up in Racine, Wisconsin to do the next broadcast as we take off for a week out of town to visit some family up there. And of course, tonight following the show, we have the Sports Exchange afterwards. So with that said, as we get ready to wrap it up, is there one thing else you want to say, Jacob?
Yeah, I was just say, George, the thing you brought up with fans, you see why every time you say these kind of stories, you see why I go full blast on my team. It's like like you brought up with the whole Fields thing, and Fields played pretty well that game. But the little things like these type of deals is like, it is more than where I go a full blast on these fans is it's more than basically than the surface of everything and more than the winning. It's like they try to be entertained instead of the deal. And it's like, and it's tough to watch. It's tough to watch fan because It's tough to watch because it's one thing if the front offices just put on a product on the field and ignored them. Because if you ignore them, they're not going to go away if you're winning. They won't. They're going to go get their beer. They're going to have their entertainment. But they don't ignore them. They keep doing stupid things to appease them. And then you see something like this now, and then the more you boo them, even at 8-2, then they make dumb decisions later, and then you get mad at the front office that try to appease you.
Well, the only thing I'll say before we wrap this show up, Jacob, is fans are fans, period. They are what they are. They're fanatics. Okay. All of us here are members of the media. Okay. You may not like us if we're in the media because of how stories turn out, but we're members of the media. Fans are what they are. They pay a lot of money to go where they're at, so they think they're entitled to be a bunch of banana sickamola heads. And we'll leave it at that. All right.
And one real quick, well, we have to go. Scott, I love you, and I love you guys, and I love this media because this media is honest. Do you understand what I'm going at? When I get mad at media, it's based off that, but I will give this the exception because it's honest, and it makes no qualms about it. And that's what I'm just saying.
And honest, the Sports Exchange follows this show, Jacob, George,
Yep.
and Candy. Okay. And that is not a lie. It does follow the show. JB Ellis will be on the crew there. All right. With that said, let Candy take us the rest of the way.
So if you enjoyed this show, please hit that little red subscribe button next to George. Like us, share us, tell all your friends about it. Watch some of our other episodes. We've been on here doing Pundits Pundit here on this platform for a while. Check out other episodes. Check out some of our other shows, Sports Exchange, Inside the Pigskin, 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. We have something for everybody, no matter what you like. But if you have ideas, story ideas, show ideas you want us to cover, or if you want to be a guest, send us your ideas, southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise or sponsor a show, call Scott, 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, X, whatever you want to call Twitter now. You can also hear us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio. Now available, Scott's book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It's available on Kindle and Amazon. Get your copy today. George, how can people get a hold of you?
You can read me at the South Florida Tribune under the Motor City Tribune. And also at the end of my column, we always have a link if you want to get a copy of my book, which is about Detroit sports broadcasters. You can click on that link and get your copy ordered. You can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com and on X, Twitter, at SanGSports99. And find me on 108 Stitches Inside the Pigskin, Pundits Pundit, Sports Exchange, Fire Up. Wonderful programming here. Glad to be part of it on the South Florida Tribune and the Sideline Sports family.
Jacob, how can people get a hold of you?
4 days a week of shows, up to 5 shows. Jake the Pundit on Twitter or X, as we call it, Jake the Pundit 1 on TikTok, and then a bunch of different things, a little bit of writings, and maybe even a couple movies here and there.
Nice.
Great.
Scott, how can people get a hold of you?
You already gave it all. I don't have to repeat it. We're good.
At Tribune South on Twitter for you.
There you go. All right. Coming up, Sports Exchange. Thanks for everybody for joining us, and also happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.